Well, hello, friends, and thank you for joining me on this Friday edition of the Daily Connection. It's a time when we get together in the Word, and more importantly, that's right, the Word gets into us. So we've come to our final Daily Connection for the year 2022, and it's kind of fitting that we're now at I guess we could say the last argument that Moses is going to present in response to God's commissioning of him to go back to Pharaoh. And we're also going to come to a reminder that when God calls a man, he equips his man. And of course, I'm using the word man in a general sense here. When God calls a man or a woman to his mission and his ministry, he will ultimately equip that one to fulfill that mission or ministry, most especially when it comes to empowering his word. So we're going to pick up in chapter 4 of Exodus, verse 10. And the very first word, of course, is not great. It's the word but Moses. So that lets us know that what we had going, and we had some momentum built. Now Moses is going to come back and say, well, but Moses replied to the Lord, "Please, Lord, I've never been eloquent either in the past or recently or since you've been speaking to your servant, because my mouth and my tongue are sluggish." And the Lord said to him, "Who placed a mouth on humans? Who makes a person mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say." Moses said, "Please, Lord, send someone else." Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, "Isn't Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well, and also he's on his way to meet you now. He will rejoice when he sees you. You will speak with him and tell him what to say. I will help both you and him to speak, and will teach you both what to do. He will speak to the people for you. He will serve as a mouth for you, and you will serve as God to him. And take this staff in your hand that you will perform the signs with." So here we see, we start out with, who am I to go to Pharaoh? God responded. Secondly, he said, who are you that's sending me? What am I to tell? If they ask who you are, what am I supposed to say? And then he comes back and says, hey, how can I confirm that you are who you say you are, and that how can I confirm to them that I've actually heard from you? And God goes about the process of answering that. So all these, I guess you could say, excuses have been put out there, and to some degree, some of them are legit. They really are. And now here we come back to verse 10, and Moses says, "Please, Lord, I'm not eloquent of speech yet. I can't talk clearly." Now, some of the commentators, or at least one commentator that I follow, says that this is really nothing more than a sign of humility. It was common in the ancient Near East that a person, to avoid looking arrogant and pompous and proud, would never just jump out there, "Okay, I got this." I mean, they always responded with a sense of humility right here. I don't know. I mean, it seems like we've got a continuous pattern here by Moses, starting, with the first one, "Who am I?" Second one, "Who are you?" Third one, God responding to that. So I think we do have an excuse here. I think Moses is saying, hey, there's something about me that you don't know, God, and I just don't speak well. And what's funny is the way people have tried to interpret this. Some have said he's got a speech impediment. Others say his Egyptian's a little rusty because he's been with the sheep for 50 years, hadn't been speaking the Egyptian, because he's been speaking sheep or whatever, which kind of a little bit of a pun there. But regardless, he seems to be presenting one more excuse of why he cannot go. And we see the Lord saying, hey, Moses, I'm the one who gave man his mouth. I'm the one who's given man the capacity to communicate in the first place. He even takes it a step further. One that causes some consternation in some places, some struggle in others, and who makes the person mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? So some might say, you got to be kidding me. You mean God makes people with these impediments, with these handicaps that we consider them to be? And that seems to be what the text is saying, but more importantly, what it's indicating is I have purpose in how I go about equipping. Whereas what we see something as a handicap and an impediment, God takes that and uses that in many cases for a glorification of himself and for an amplification of his message and the ministry through these individuals. And so he said, hey, Moses, I'm the one who gives the capacity to communicate in the first place. He said, I will teach you what to say. And then, of course, Moses, hearing this, finally gives that one last resolve, said, hey, Lord, here am I, send somebody else. In other words, I hear what you're saying. I see what you've shown me here. You have great power. I get it. I'm just not your man. Send the message by whomever you want to send it, but just not me. And what's fascinating is God doesn't give up. Yeah, it says his anger burned, but what it also says is, hey, your brother Aaron's coming. I know he can speak well. And besides, I'm going to be the one that give both of you the ability to speak very well. And I'm going to empower the words because they're going to be my words. He even goes on to say this. He said, hey, you will teach him what to say because you will be like God to him, and then I will give you the message and you'll convey that, which is interesting because when we get into the Exodus narrative, we don't really see Aaron speaking that much. It really is Moses who takes the lead in just about every situation in communicating, whether it's to Pharaoh or to the elders or to the people. Which might be a way of saying, hey, Moses, that was just an excuse and it was a poor one and God shot it down. But regardless, God is saying, hey, I got you there. I mean, Moses, I won't accept that. I will overcome. You are my messenger and I will empower the message. Of course, ultimately it says, he says, hey, Moses says, he goes to his father-in-law Jethro, says, hey, I've got to go. But what's fascinating is before he goes, we see two statements. First of all, verse 17. And take this staff in your hand that you will perform the signs with. So God is telling him, hey, take your staff back. And to some degree, he's saying, hey, don't forget this staff will serve as a reminder that my power is with you and that my power is what's making you speak, is what's enabling you to perform great signs and wonders. It's all about me, Moses. And what's fascinating because when we get down to verse 19, it says this, after Jethro says, go in peace, verse 19, now in Midian the Lord told Moses, return to Egypt, for all the men who wanted to kill you are dead. So Moses took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, and returned to the land of Egypt, and Moses took God's staff in his hand. Now, when the story began, it was Moses' staff, the staff that he'd been using all during his time, no doubt, of tending the sheep, 40 years. And God performed great signs with that staff. Verse 17, take this staff. Now, here in verse 19, verse 20, it's identified as God's staff. And it would be with that staff representing the presence and power of God that Moses would do great signs and wonders, not just in the deliverance of the people, but also in times of fighting for the people. When his hands were held up and the staff was up, God's power would be unleashed on the enemy. When the hands would come down, that would demonstrate that God's power was not acting on their behalf. On and on and on we can go with those examples. But the fact of the matter is this, folks. When God calls us to his ministry, he equips us for that ministry. He empowers us for that ministry. All of our concerns, all of our hesitations, reservations, all of our excuses are invalid. Because if God has truly called us to that, and that's probably where our biggest struggle should be, is in the confirmation of God's call. Has God indeed called me to teach this Connect group? We've made an appeal. I've made an appeal now for 4 weeks that we need an assistant, not the main teacher, an assistant in the 1st and 2nd grade boys Connect group. Crickets, nothing. Come on, men, step up. I need a man who will come in there and demonstrate to these young men what it means to be a godly man. Give that example. It's not even the primary teacher, it's the assistant. But whether it's a Connect group teacher or assistant, whether it's helping out with Awana, whether it's helping out in student ministry, whether it's being a part of an outreach opportunity, whether it's just the daily engagement of culture, we must have the confirmation. Our biggest struggle should be the confirmation that God is calling us to that. Secondly, when we have the confirmation, then we need the affirmation that God will empower us to do exactly what he's called us to do. You think the call to ministry is an easy call to answer? It's not. But the fact of the matter is that once I was able to confirm that God was indeed calling me that, and I did that with godly counsel, with much prayer and fasting, once I was able to confirm that, then there was never really a reservation or concern because I knew God had called me. Now, I still struggled. But I didn't struggle with the call. I struggled with things in ministry. I struggled with inadequacies. I struggled with lack of faith. And those were all me. Those were all me. But the fact of the matter is, when you know God's called you, you can know and rest assured God will empower you. God will empower his word through you. God will accomplish his purpose that he intended when he called you. So the fact of the matter is, we must just be obedient and answer the call. And the reason why I say important today is because we're right on the precipice, right on the threshold of a brand new year. And people are going to make New Year's resolutions, new commitments, things like this, personal health, financial stability, financial health, all these different things that relate to the here and the now. I want to challenge you to listen to the Lord, listen to God, and listen to what he might be speaking in terms of a commitment to his ministry in 2023. A commitment to being more faithful to serving Him, whether that be on campus through various ministries that we were able to offer, disciple-making ministries we were able to offer, or whether that's in your job, in your school, in your recreation, wherever it is. Number one, you know your call because the Great Commission is the general call. Number two, seek specifically how God might be ready to use you right where you are to accomplish His purpose. That's far more important than any New Year's resolution. It's far more important than any commitment to better health or better financial stability. It is a kingdom calling for a kingdom purpose for God's kingdom glory. And that should be our goal. He ultimately told Moses, Moses, I am with you. I will empower you. You will do exactly what I want done because it's my plan and my purpose and my power. And he's saying the same thing to us, church. Well, friends, look forward to worshiping with you in the new year. But until we're together again, you know where I'm going with that one, right? That's right. Live sent.